The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Elder Zeftar's ancient form materialized at the center of the crystalline amphitheater. His species, the Vorthak, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the galaxy's spiral arms. When an elder spoke, even the most powerful species listened. "Fellow beings of the Council," Zeftar's voice resonated through the chamber, carried by quantum fields that translated his words into every language simultaneously. "We face an unprecedented situation. The humans have reached beyond their solar system." A ripple of unease spread through the gathered representatives. The Caltharian ambassador, her 6 arms gesticulating nervously, was the first to speak. "Elder, surely you exaggerate the threat. Humans are barely past their primitive combustion-based spaceflight. Our intelligence reports show they've only just established permanent settlements on their closest planetary neighbor." Zeftar's multiple eyes fixed upon her, each iris swirling with colors that had no names in most languages. "Ambassador Vexithera, your species' arrogance blinds you to the true nature of what approaches. The humans are not merely another emerging species." The hegemony representative, a massive being whose crystalline body caught and refracted the chamber's bioluminescent lighting, leaned forward. "What exactly are you implying, Elder? Their technology is millennia behind ours. Their weapons are crude, projectile-based systems. Their fastest vessels would take them decades to reach even the nearest inhabited systems." "Technology," Zeftar said, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to press down upon every being present, "is not the measure by which the humans should be judged." The elder moved to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display system awaited his command. With a gesture that seemed almost reluctant, he activated the ancient records. Images began to form in the air above them, star charts, historical data, and something else that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "The Vorthak have maintained records for over 50,000 of your years," Zeftar continued. "We have observed the patterns of galactic evolution, the rise of intelligence, the spread of consciousness across the void. In all that time, we have cataloged 731 species that achieved interstellar capability." The display showed a cascading timeline of civilizations, each represented by complex mathematical models that described their growth, expansion, and eventual characteristics. Species after species flowed past: the militaristic Drakhari Empire, the peaceful traders of Zelthon Prime, the enigmatic energy beings of the Outer Rim. Of these 731 species, 612 followed predictable patterns. They achieved spaceflight through gradual technological advancement, established colonies within their immediate stellar neighborhood, and eventually either stagnated or expanded in controlled logical progressions. Ambassador Vexthera's mandibles clicked impatiently. "And the remaining 119? 98 of them destroyed themselves through warfare, environmental collapse, or social breakdown before achieving significant interstellar presence. 20 became extinct through external factors: supernovas, asteroid impacts, plague. That accounts for 730, the hegemony representative noted, his crystalline voice tinged with confusion. Zeftar's pause stretched longer than comfortable. The 731st species is still being observed. "The humans," whispered someone from the back of the chamber. "Indeed." The elder's confirmation sent another wave of unease through the assembly. In 50,000 years of observation, the Vorthak have never encountered a species quite like humanity. The holographic display shifted, showing Earth in exquisite detail. The blue-white marble hung in the darkness, seemingly peaceful, its surface swirled with clouds and marked by the lights of civilization. But as the view zoomed in, the true nature of the planet's inhabitants became apparent. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by networks of transportation that pulsed with constant activity. Orbital installations dotted the space around the planet, not just scientific stations, but industrial complexes, military outposts, and structures whose purposes were not immediately apparent to the alien observers. "Observe their timeline," Zeftar commanded, and the display began moving backward through human history. The assembled representatives watched in growing amazement as the timeline reversed. A mere century earlier, humans had been confined to their planet's surface. 2 centuries back, they were fighting wars with chemical explosives and primitive aircraft. 3 centuries prior, they were using wind-powered ships to cross their oceans. "This is impossible," breathed the Altarian delegate, her telepathic voice causing several psychically sensitive beings to wince. "No species develops this rapidly. The fundamental laws of social and technological evolution prohibit such acceleration." "And yet," Zeftar said, "here they are." The display continued its backward journey through human development. The representatives watched as sprawling cities contracted into smaller settlements, as complex technologies simplified into basic tools, as global communications networks dissolved into isolated communities. And through it all, one thing remained constant. Humans were always fighting, always adapting, always pushing against every boundary they encountered. "Show them the wars," commanded Elder Kethmar, another Vorthak who had remained silent until now. Zeftar hesitated. "Are you certain? The data can be disturbing to species that evolved under more stable conditions." "Show them." The holographic display exploded into a cascade of conflicts that spanned human history. Not just the large-scale wars that had shaped their political landscape, but smaller conflicts, territorial disputes, resource battles, ideological struggles. The sheer frequency and intensity of human warfare made several delegates physically recoil. This level of internal conflict should have destroyed them, the hegemony representative stated flatly. "No civilization can sustain this degree of violent competition and still achieve technological advancement." "Precisely," Zeftar agreed. "By every model we possess, by every pattern we've observed across the galaxy, humanity should have become extinct long before they developed agriculture, let alone spaceflight." The Caltharian ambassador leaned forward, her 6 arms spread in a gesture of confusion. "Then how do they not only survive but thrive? What force drives them to continue advancing despite constant internal warfare?" For the first time since the session began, Zeftar's ancient composure seemed to crack slightly. His multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep disturbance among his people. "That," he said slowly, "is what we have been trying to understand for the past 3,000 years, ever since we first detected their electromagnetic transmissions." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. 3,000 years of observation was unprecedented. The Vorthak typically monitored emerging species for a few decades at most, before categorizing them and moving on to other subjects. 3,000 years? The question came from Ambassador Tor Valen of the Maritime Alliance, a species known for their patient, methodical approach to galactic affairs. "Elder, what could possibly warrant such extended observation?" Zeftar gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show a series of mathematical models, probability cascades, evolutionary projections, and sociological predictions. Every model was marked with the same symbol, a red glyph that meant unprecedented deviation from expected parameters. Every time we believed we understood their trajectory, humans exceeded our predictions. When we calculated they would develop atomic weapons, they did so decades ahead of our models. When we projected the timeline for their first artificial satellites, they achieved orbital flight earlier than seemed possible. When we estimated their progression to interplanetary travel, they again surpassed our expectations. The elder paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle upon the assembly. But it was not merely the speed of their advancement that concerned us. It was the nature of how they achieved it. The display zoomed in on specific events in human history, moments of crisis where their civilization had balanced on the edge of collapse, only to emerge stronger and more capable than before. Wars that had devastated entire continents but led to unprecedented technological leaps, natural disasters that had destroyed cities, only to see them rebuilt with better designs and improved defenses. They do not merely survive adversity, Zeftar explained. They weaponize it. They transform every challenge, every setback, every catastrophe into a driver for advancement. This should not be possible according to any known evolutionary psychology. The chamber fell silent as the implications began to sink in. Several representatives were accessing their own databases, cross-referencing the information with their species' own development patterns. The results were uniformly disturbing. No other known species exhibited anything approaching humanity's adaptive responses to crisis. Ambassador Vex Thera's voice was subdued when she finally spoke. Elder, you spoke of an unprecedented situation. Are the humans now aware of our existence? Not yet, Zeftar replied. But their expansion beyond their solar system is accelerating faster than our most aggressive projections indicated. Our latest intelligence suggests they will encounter one of our monitoring stations within the next 50 of their years. 50 years, the hegemony representative mused. That gives us adequate time to prepare appropriate first contact protocols. You do not understand, Zeftar said, and for the first time, there was something approaching fear in his ancient voice. We have been preparing first contact protocols for humanity for over 1,000 years. None of them account for what we have recently discovered. The tension in the chamber became almost palpable as every being present focused their attention on the elder's next words. 3 months ago, our deep monitoring array detected something that fundamentally changes our understanding of the human species. Zeftar gestured, and the display showed a section of space near Earth's solar system. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just the normal traffic patterns of human vessels moving between their inner planets. Then the perspective shifted, revealing something that made several delegates gasp audibly. Hidden among the routine shipping lanes and scientific missions were vessels that didn't match any known human technology. They were sleeker, more advanced, and moving in patterns that suggested capabilities far beyond what humanity should possess. These ships, Zeftar continued, are of human construction, but they incorporate technologies that our models indicated they would not develop for at least another 3 centuries. Impossible, breathed the Altarian delegate. You're suggesting they've made a 300-year technological leap in what time frame? 18 months. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. 18 months to achieve technological advancement that should have taken centuries. It violated every known principle of scientific and social development. How? The question came from multiple delegates simultaneously, creating a discordant chorus of confusion and alarm. Zeftar's response was barely above a whisper, but it carried clearly through the quantum translation field. We believe they are reverse engineering technology from sources we have not yet identified. The silence that followed Elder Zeftar's revelation stretched for long moments before Ambassador Vexithera found her voice. You're implying that humans have encountered alien technology and successfully adapted it to their own purposes? Not encountered, Zeftar corrected grimly. Captured. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing a detailed scan of the outer edge of Earth's solar system. A massive debris field drifted in the cold darkness beyond the orbit of their outermost planet, scattered across millions of cubic kilometers of space. 7 months ago, a Drakari scouting fleet entered human space, the Elder continued. Their mission was routine reconnaissance, catalog human capabilities, assess potential threats, standard protocol for monitoring emerging species. The assembled representatives leaned forward. The Drakhari were known across the galaxy as one of the most militaristically advanced species. Their technology was centuries ahead of what humans should possess, their vessels shielded and armed with weapons that could reduce planets to molten slag. The fleet consisted of 12 vessels, Zeftar said, highlighting each ship in the debris field. Heavily armed long-range scouts, equipped with the most advanced stealth technology in the Drakhari arsenal. Ambassador Tor Valen's voice was carefully neutral. I assume from the context that this scouting mission did not proceed as planned. The Drakhari fleet was completely destroyed within 6 hours of entering the outer solar system. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several delegates began frantically accessing their communication systems, no doubt seeking confirmation of this impossible claim from their own intelligence networks. Elder, the hegemony representative's crystalline voice rang with disbelief. You're describing a military impossibility. The Drakhari use quantum phase stealth generators. Their ships would be completely invisible to any sensor system the humans could possibly possess. They were invisible, Zeftar confirmed. For approximately 4 hours and 17 minutes. The display zoomed in on one section of the debris field, showing twisted metal and crystalline fragments that had once been sophisticated alien technology. But scattered among the wreckage were other objects, crude-looking devices that seemed almost primitive compared to the destroyed Drakhari vessels. The humans detected the intruding fleet using a method we had not anticipated, the Elder continued. They did not rely on sensor technology to find ships they could not see. Then how? Demanded Ambassador Vex Thera. They tracked the gravitational disturbances caused by the fleet's movement through their star system. The simple elegance of the solution sent ripples of unease through the assembly. Gravitational sensors were basic physics, available to any species that understood mass-energy relationships. But using them to track individual spacecraft required mathematical processing capabilities and intuitive thinking that most species developed only after centuries of spacefaring experience. The humans' response to the detection was equally unprecedented, Zeftar said, his voice taking on an almost reluctant tone. Within 2 hours of identifying the intruders, they had launched a coordinated attack using every available vessel in their system. The holographic display began playing a reconstruction of the battle. Human ships, crude-looking cylinders propelled by chemical rockets and simple fusion drives, converged on the Drakhari fleet from multiple vectors. Their weapons were primitive projectile cannons and early-generation energy beams that should have been completely ineffective against advanced alien shielding. The initial human assault was, as expected, completely ineffective, Zeftar narrated, as the display showed human weapons fire splashing harmlessly off invisible barriers. Drakhari defensive systems absorbed the attacks without registering significant damage. Then how were the alien ships destroyed? Asked the Altarian delegate. The humans adapted. The display continued, showing what happened next. After their initial weapons proved useless, the human fleet began changing tactics in real time. Some ships started ramming the invisible barriers, using their own hulls as projectiles to test the aliens' defensive capabilities. Others began firing in seemingly random patterns, mapping the locations of the cloaked vessels through trial and error. And then, Zeftar said, his voice heavy with implications, they did something we have never observed in any other species. The reconstruction showed a single human vessel breaking away from the main battle. It approached one of the Drakhari ships from an angle that should have put it directly in the line of fire from the aliens' weapons. Instead of attacking, however, the human ship began transmitting. They started talking to their enemies, whispered Ambassador Tor Valen. Not talking, Zeftar corrected. Learning. The display showed streams of data flowing between the human vessel and the alien ship. At first, the transmissions appeared to be random electromagnetic noise. But as the Elder enhanced the analysis, patterns began to emerge. The human ship was broadcasting mathematical sequences, scientific constants, and basic logical structures, he explained. They were attempting to establish communication with beings whose existence they had only just discovered. During a battle? The hegemony representative's question carried notes of incredulity that resonated through his crystalline form. The Drakhari commander, apparently intrigued by this unprecedented behavior, ordered his ship to respond. He began transmitting basic acknowledgments, simple mathematical confirmations. The chamber watched in fascination as the display showed the rapid evolution of communication between human and alien vessels. Within minutes, both sides were exchanging increasingly complex information. Mathematical concepts gave way to scientific principles, which evolved into technical specifications. The human ship was learning about Drakhari technology in real time, Zeftar continued, and more remarkably, they were somehow implementing what they learned. The reconstruction showed the impossible scene that followed. The human vessel, still in the middle of a space battle, began modifying its own systems based on the alien information it was receiving. Crude hull sections were jettisoned and replaced with hastily constructed modules that incorporated principles of Drakhari engineering. "This is physically impossible," stated Ambassador Vexathera flatly. "You cannot redesign and rebuild spacecraft systems during combat. The time requirements alone—" "Under normal circumstances, you would be correct," Zeftar agreed. "But humans do not appear to operate under normal circumstances." The display continued showing the battle's progression. The single human ship that had made contact began sharing its newly acquired knowledge with the rest of the human fleet. Within hours, crude human vessels were sporting jury-rigged modifications that gave them capabilities approaching those of their alien opponents. The Drakhari commander, realizing that his tactical advantage was disappearing, ordered his fleet to retreat. But by then, the humans had learned too much. The final phase of the battle played out in the holographic display with devastating clarity. Modified human vessels, now equipped with hybrid technology that shouldn't have been possible, pursued the fleeing Drakhari ships. The aliens' stealth systems became useless as humans learned to compensate for their effects. Advanced alien weapons were countered by improvised human defenses that incorporated principles gleaned from captured transmissions. The last Drakhari vessel was destroyed attempting to jump to hyperspace, Zeftar concluded. The humans had somehow learned enough about their propulsion systems to disrupt the jump sequence. Ambassador Torvalen was the first to speak into the stunned silence. "Elder, you're describing capabilities that suggest the humans possess some form of technology we've never encountered. Rapid prototyping systems, advanced manufacturing capabilities, artificial intelligence networks. No." Zeftar's interruption was sharp and definitive. "Our analysis of the recovered human vessels shows that they achieved these modifications using existing technology, tools and equipment that they already possessed, simply applied in ways we had not anticipated." "Then how?" demanded the hegemony representative. "The answer lies not in their technology, but in their psychology." The elder gestured, and the display shifted to show detailed scans of human brain activity during various crisis situations. The neural patterns were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Human cognitive architecture operates on principles that we are only beginning to understand, Zeftar explained. When faced with unprecedented challenges, their brains do not simply access existing knowledge and apply known solutions. They appear to genuinely create new knowledge through a process we cannot adequately describe. The brain scans showed activity patterns that defied conventional understanding of intelligence. Neural pathways that should have been isolated were connecting in real time. Memory centers were interfacing with creative regions in ways that suggested thought processes no alien species had ever developed. They think differently, the elder continued. Not better or worse than other species, but fundamentally differently. Where most intelligent life follows logical progression from known principles to practical applications, humans seem capable of intuiting solutions to problems they have never encountered. Ambassador Vexathera's mandibles clicked nervously. You're describing a species with supernatural capabilities. Not supernatural, Zeftar corrected. Simply unprecedented in our experience. The holographic display shifted once more, showing current human space activity in the wake of their encounter with the Drakkari. The changes were dramatic and disturbing. Human vessels now incorporated design elements that clearly derived from alien technology, but modified and improved in ways that the original Drakkari engineers had never conceived. In the 7 months since the battle, human technological capability has advanced by what our models estimate to be roughly 4 centuries, the elder reported. They have reverse-engineered and improved upon systems that the Drakkari spent millennia developing. Improved? The question came from multiple delegates simultaneously. The hybrid human Drakkari vessels are demonstrably superior to their original alien counterparts, more efficient, more adaptable, and more resilient. The humans didn't simply copy alien technology, they perfected it. The implications were staggering. A species that could not only quickly understand alien technology, but actually improve upon it, represented a fundamental challenge to every assumption the galactic community held about technological development and species interaction. Elder Kethmar, who had remained silent throughout most of the presentation, finally spoke. Show them the projections. Zeftar hesitated. The projections are highly speculative. Based on limited data, show them. With obvious reluctance, the elder activated a new display. Mathematical models filled the air above the assembly. Complex calculations that traced potential future development paths for human civilization. The results were uniformly disturbing. Every projection, regardless of variables or assumed limitations, showed the same general trajectory. Human expansion beyond their solar system would not follow the gradual, careful patterns exhibited by other species. Instead, they would spread rapidly across the galaxy, adapting and improving every technology they encountered. According to our models, Zeftar said quietly, if current trends continue, humans will possess technology equivalent to the most advanced galactic civilizations within 50 years of their first interstellar ventures. And within 100 years? Asked Ambassador Torvalen, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. Within 100 years, they will surpass us all. The words hung in the chamber like a death sentence. For the first time in galactic history, the assembled representatives were confronting the possibility that their species' technological superiority, the foundation of galactic civilization for millennia, might be temporary. What do the Vorthak recommend? The hegemony representative asked finally. Elder Zeftar exchanged a long look with his colleague before answering. We believe the galactic community faces a choice. We can attempt to contain human expansion through military intervention, though our analysis suggests this would likely accelerate rather than slow their development. Or, prompted Ambassador Vexthera, or we can attempt to establish contact and hope that human psychology, which makes them so adaptable in crisis, might also make them willing to coexist peacefully with species that pose no threat to them. And if we're wrong about their peaceful intentions? Zeftar's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, the Vorthak equivalent of a resigned shrug. Then the galaxy, as the Galactic Council's emergency session had been in recess for 6 hours while representatives consulted with their home governments. When the assembly reconvened, the tension in the crystalline chamber was so thick it seemed to affect the quantum translation fields, causing occasional static in the communication systems. Ambassador Vexthera was the first to speak when Elder Zeftar called the session to order. The Caltharian hegemony has reached a decision regarding the human situation. We believe that immediate military intervention is not only justified, but necessary for galactic security. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several sections of the assembly. The Drakhari representative, who had arrived during the recess to confirm the destruction of their scouting fleet, was particularly vocal in his support. The loss of our ships proves that these humans represent an immediate threat to established galactic order, Commander Vashitok declared, his scarred features highlighting the militaristic nature of his species. If they can destroy a Drakhari fleet and reverse engineer our technology in a matter of hours, they must be contained before they develop interstellar capability. The hegemony representative's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. Our analysis confirms the Drakhari assessment. A preemptive strike while the humans remain confined to their solar system would prevent a potential galactic catastrophe. Elder Zeftar listened to the mounting calls for military action with an expression that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. When the chamber finally fell silent, he spoke with deliberate slowness. Before any decisions are made, there is additional information you must consider. The holographic display activated once more, showing a familiar image of Earth's solar system. But this view was different from the earlier presentations. Hidden monitoring stations throughout the system were revealed, along with detection grids and surveillance networks that the humans should not have been able to perceive, let alone locate. 3 days ago, we received a transmission, Zeftar announced. It was directed specifically at our concealed observation post in the asteroid belt. The chamber fell completely silent. The implications were staggering. If humans could detect and target Vorthak's stealth technology, they possessed capabilities far beyond what anyone had imagined. The message was brief, the Elder continued, activating an audio system. A voice filled the chamber, clearly human, speaking in accented but recognizable galactic standard. To the observers who have been watching our world, we know you are there. We have known for some time. We would like to talk. The simplicity of the message somehow made it more unsettling than any threat could have been. Ambassador Vex Thera's 6 arms twitched nervously as she processed the implications. They detected surveillance systems that even we cannot usually locate, she whispered. How is that possible? Show them the analysis, Elder Kethmar urged quietly. Zeftar nodded reluctantly and activated a new display showing detailed scans of human activities throughout their solar system. What the assembled delegates saw defied every assumption they held about technological development. Humans had not simply reverse-engineered the captured Drakhari technology. They had dissected it, understood its principles, and then built entirely new systems based on those principles. More disturbing still, they had done so without abandoning their existing technology. Instead, they had found ways to integrate alien concepts with their own engineering approaches, creating hybrid systems that were both familiar and completely unprecedented. The human detection of our monitoring stations was not accomplished through advanced sensor technology, Zeftar explained. They identified our presence through pattern recognition and statistical analysis. The display showed human mathematical models that tracked minute variations in electromagnetic radiation, gravitational fields, and even quantum fluctuations throughout their solar system. By comparing current readings with historical baselines, human scientists had identified anomalies that indicated the presence of artificial objects. They treated the search for alien observers as a mathematical puzzle, the Elder continued. Rather than trying to see our concealed stations directly, they mapped the space where such stations would logically be placed, then looked for evidence of their effects on the surrounding environment. Commander Vashitok leaned forward aggressively. This proves our point. They are becoming too dangerous to ignore. Strike now, while we still possess technological superiority. Do we? Elder Zeftar asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Before anyone could respond, the Elder activated another display showing the most recent intelligence from Earth. Human industrial capability has increased by a factor of 12 since their encounter with the Drakhari fleet. They have established manufacturing facilities throughout their solar system, each one incorporating hybrid technology derived from captured alien systems. The images were striking. Massive space-based factories orbited every planet and major asteroid in the human system. Raw materials were being processed on a scale that rivaled mature galactic civilizations, despite humans having achieved spaceflight mere decades earlier. More significantly, Zeftar continued, they appear to be constructing vessels designed for interstellar travel. New images appeared showing sleek ships under construction in orbital shipyards. These vessels bore little resemblance to the crude human craft that had battled the Drakhari. They were elegant, efficient designs that incorporated the best features of multiple alien technologies while maintaining distinctly human engineering philosophies. Ambassador Torvalin studied the ships with growing alarm. Those designs, they're not simply copying alien technology. They're creating something new. Precisely, Zeftar confirmed. Human engineers have taken concepts from Drakhari propulsion, Vorthak stealth systems, and Kaltharian energy management, then combined them in ways none of the original species ever conceived. Impossible, breathed Ambassador Vexathera. Cross-species technology integration requires centuries of research and testing. The quantum incompatibilities alone are apparently not incompatible for human engineers, the Elder interrupted. They have solved integration problems that our best scientists considered theoretically impossible. The Altarian delegate's psychic voice carried notes of genuine fear. If they can integrate our technologies so easily, what happens when they encounter more advanced civilizations? The question prompted Elder Zeftar to activate the final, most disturbing display of the session. Projections filled the air showing potential scenarios for human expansion into the galaxy. Every model, regardless of variables, showed the same general outcome. Human vessels will reach the nearest inhabited systems within 15 years, Zeftar reported. Once they begin encountering other species, their technological development will accelerate exponentially. Each new contact will provide them with additional knowledge to integrate and improve upon. Then we stop them now, Commander Vashatok declared. A coordinated strike by all major military powers would fail catastrophically. The interruption came not from Elder Zeftar, but from a new voice that filled the chamber. Every being present turned to see a figure materializing at the center of the assembly, not through the normal holographic projection system, but through technology none of them recognized. The newcomer was human. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and lines around her eyes that suggested considerable experience. Her clothing was simple but functional, and she carried herself with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to authority. What was most unsettling, however, was that she had somehow penetrated the most secure facility in the galaxy without triggering any alarms. Ambassador Sarah Chen, she introduced herself, offering a slight bow that somehow managed to encompass the entire assembly. United Earth Government, I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we felt it was important to address some misconceptions before they led to unfortunate decisions. The chamber erupted in chaos, security systems activated, searching for threats that apparently didn't exist. Representatives scrambled to contact their home governments while others demanded explanations for the impossible security breach. Elder Zeftar raised a hand for silence, and gradually the assembly settled. His ancient composure remained intact, but there was something approaching awe in his multiple eyes. How? He asked simply. Ambassador Chen smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both friendliness and barely contained danger. We've been monitoring your communications for some time, Elder. Once we identified your surveillance network, it wasn't difficult to locate your council chambers and develop appropriate transportation technology. You developed interstellar transport in 3 days? Ambassador Vexithera's voice was barely above a whisper. Actually, we've had the basic principles worked out for several months. We just needed to refine the targeting systems and add stealth capabilities. Your own technology provided some useful insights for the latter. The casual way she discussed reverse engineering Vorthak stealth technology sent ripples of unease through the assembly. But Ambassador Chen seemed oblivious to the effect her words were having. Now then, she continued, producing a small device from her pocket, I understand there's been some discussion about military intervention against my species. Commander Vashitok half rose from his seat. Human, you have entered sovereign galactic territory without authorization. Any statements you make will be backed by the full capability of the United Earth Defense Force, Chen finished smoothly, which, as of this morning, includes a fleet of 12 vessels currently positioned throughout this solar system. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. 12 human ships had penetrated the defenses of the galactic capital without being detected. The same species that had been confined to their home system mere months earlier was now projecting force into the heart of galactic civilization. This is impossible, Ambassador Vexithera protested. Our security networks would have detected any unauthorized vessels. Ambassador Chen activated her device, and new images appeared in the holographic display. 12 sleek vessels hung in space around the Council world, their designs clearly based on the hybrid human-alien technology that had been described earlier. But these ships were different, more advanced, more elegant, and somehow more purposeful than anything shown in the previous intelligence reports. We've made some improvements since your last surveillance update, Chen explained conversationally. Turns out that combining Vorthak's stealth technology with Caltharian quantum manipulation and Drakhari energy management produces some interesting capabilities. Elder Zeftar stared at the images with growing understanding. You're not just reverse engineering our technology, you're advancing it. We prefer to think of it as collaborative improvement, Chen replied with another smile, though I admit the collaboration has been somewhat one-sided so far. The hegemony representative's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. What do you want, human? What we've always wanted, Ambassador Chen said, her tone becoming more serious. To explore, to learn, and to find our place among the stars. We never asked to be isolated or viewed as a threat. Your technological capabilities make you a threat by definition, Commander Vashitok growled. Do they? Chen asked mildly. Commander, how many Drakhari casualties were there in the battle with our forces? Vashitok paused, momentarily confused by the apparent change of subject. Casualties? There were none. Your ships destroyed our vessels but made no attempt to target escape pods or rescue survivors. Exactly, Chen nodded. We've captured and studied your technology, but we've harmed no one. Every Drakhari crew member was safely recovered and repatriated. We even repaired their personal equipment and sent along technical manuals for the improvements we made to their ship designs. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Despite possessing the capability to cause massive casualties, humans had deliberately chosen to preserve alien life even during combat. Ambassador Tor Valen was the first to speak. You could have learned far more from captured prisoners than from technology alone. Yes, Chen agreed simply. But we don't learn by harming others. We learn by understanding. Elder Zeftar leaned forward, his ancient eyes focusing intently on the human ambassador. Miss Chen, your species' technological advancement is unprecedented. Your capabilities threaten to upset the balance that has maintained galactic peace for millennia. How can you expect us to simply accept your expansion into the wider galaxy? Ambassador Chen was quiet for several moments, as if weighing her response carefully. When she spoke, her words carried a gravity that seemed to resonate through the chamber. Elder, with respect, I think you've misunderstood something fundamental about my species. You see our rapid technological advancement and assume it makes us dangerous. But technology has never been what drives humanity. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show images of Earth throughout its history. Not the wars and conflicts that had been highlighted in earlier presentations, but something else entirely. Cities being rebuilt after disasters, scientists sharing research across political boundaries, rescue teams risking their lives to save strangers. We adapt quickly because we have to, Chen continued. Every challenge in our history has taught us that survival depends on learning, growing, and working together. When we encountered your technology, we didn't see weapons or tools for domination. We saw knowledge that could help us better understand the universe we share with you. The images continued to flow. Humans cooperating across species lines, even in the midst of their own conflicts. Soldiers sharing rations with enemy wounded. Scientists from warring nations collaborating on research. Communities coming together to rebuild after devastation. The same drive that makes us dangerous makes us invaluable as allies, Ambassador Chen said quietly. We don't just adapt to survive challenges. We adapt to help others survive them too. Elder Kethmar, who had been silent throughout most of the session, finally spoke. What do humans want from the galaxy, Ambassador? Partnership, Chen replied without hesitation. Not domination, not conquest, but genuine collaboration. We want to learn from you, share what we discover, and work together to solve the problems that face all of us. And if that partnership is refused, Commander Vashitok demanded. Ambassador Chen's expression became sad rather than threatening. Then we'll continue to develop on our own. But Elder Zeftar's projections are correct. Within a century, we'll surpass every technology represented in this chamber. The question isn't whether that will happen, but whether it happens with your cooperation or despite your opposition. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. For the first time in galactic history, a species was offering partnership as equals rather than seeking acceptance as inferiors. Elder Zeftar spoke slowly, his words carrying the weight of millennia of experience. The Vorthak have observed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. In all that time, we have never encountered a species capable of true collaborative advancement. Most intelligent life competes for resources, territory, or dominance. Most intelligent life, Ambassador Chen agreed. But not all of it. The elder continued as if she hadn't spoken. But humans seem to compete with the universe itself. You don't fight each other for resources. You fight the limitations that make resources scarce. You don't battle for territory. You battle the barriers that limit where you can go. You don't seek dominance over others. You seek to dominate the problems that affect everyone. That, Chen said softly, is exactly right. And that, Zeftar concluded, is why you cannot be stopped. Not by military force, not by technological superiority, not by any power we possess. You will continue to advance because advancement is not a choice for you. It is what you are. The admission hung in the chamber like a benediction. For the first time in galactic history, the assembled representatives were confronting a truth that would reshape their understanding of intelligence itself. Ambassador Vex Thera was the first to break the silence. If what you say is true, then the galaxy will change whether we resist or cooperate. The question becomes whether it changes through conflict or through collaboration. That choice, Ambassador Chen said, has always been yours to make. Elder Zeftar looked around the assembly, reading the expressions and emanations of beings from dozens of species. He could see the fear, the uncertainty, but also something else, curiosity. The same drive that had led each of their species to the stars was being awakened by the possibility of genuine cooperation with beings who could accelerate their own development. The Vorthak propose a trial period, he announced finally. Limited contact, supervised exchanges of information, gradual integration of human perspectives into galactic civilization. The Caltharian hegemony seconds this proposal, Ambassador Vexathera added, her earlier hostility replaced by cautious optimism. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy added their agreement. Even Commander Vashitok, after a long moment of consideration, nodded his acceptance. Then it's settled, Ambassador Chen said. But her smile carried something that made several delegates uneasy. Though I should mention that this trial period may proceed somewhat faster than you're anticipating. What do you mean? Elder Zeftar asked. Chen activated her device once more, and the holographic display showed images that made the entire assembly gasp in unison. Massive structures were under construction throughout human space, not just ships or stations, but enormous installations whose purpose was immediately apparent to any spacefaring civilization. We've been building jump gates, Chen explained casually, permanent transport links between star systems. We should have the first interstellar network operational within 6 months. The magnitude of the announcement was staggering. Jump gates were theoretical constructs that most species considered impossible to build. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond any single species' capability. How? Whispered Ambassador Torvalen. We combined Vorthak temporal mechanics with Drakhari power generation and Caltharian quantum manipulation, Chen replied. Add some human engineering philosophy, and surprisingly, the impossible becomes merely difficult. Elder Zeftar stared at the images with something approaching philosophical despair. Ms. Chen, you realize that functional jump gates will eliminate the travel time barriers that have shaped galactic civilization for millennia? Yes, she agreed cheerfully. We're rather excited about the possibilities. The elder closed his multiple eyes and sighed, a sound that somehow conveyed the weight of watching the universe transform around him. The galaxy, he said quietly, will never be the same. No, Ambassador Chen confirmed, her smile bright with anticipation. But we think it will be better. As the session concluded and representatives began making arrangements for the new era of galactic cooperation, Elder Zeftar remained in the chamber, contemplating the changes that were about to sweep across the stars. Humans, he realized, were not just unstoppable in their advancement. They were unstoppable in their optimism, their belief that every problem had a solution and every barrier could be overcome. And perhaps most remarkably, they seemed genuinely intent on sharing that optimism with everyone they encountered. The galaxy was indeed about to change forever. But for the first time in his ancient life, Zeftar found himself looking forward to seeing what came next. After all, if humans could turn the impossible into merely difficult, what might they accomplish when the entire galaxy was working with them instead of against them? The question, he suspected, would be answered sooner than anyone expected. We know it will change forever, and there may be nothing any of us can do to stop it.